Hello, CDEC 1359. This is your Module 3 explanation. We're going to be looking at two concepts again, one over accommodations and modifications, and then we're going to be looking at the exceptionality of autism spectrum disorder. When we look at our checklist, we go over a whole lot of the SLOs in this module. We're going to be looking at Chapter 3 of Where to Start DAP, which is Developmentally Appropriate Practices, Inclusion, and Universal Design, and Chapter 7 over Autism Spectrum Disorder. We have content material that goes along with it, and then we have an environmental design activity. So the first set of content has to do with developmentally appropriate practices, universal design, and inclusion. So when you are teaching in early childhood, preschool age, even up through 8, we are still watching children develop at their own rate, and we are deciding, is this a special need? Does it need referral? How do I support? And the whole idea is that everybody learns differently anyway. What are the best practices out there? What is the biggest net we can put out there to catch everybody, to support all learners? And so the idea of developmental practices, universal design, and inclusion will be there. Inclusion refers to children with special needs. And so this is how can they be in a typically developing classroom, though, typically developing isn't my favorite choice. Is anybody typical? But there tends to be patterns and norms. And so this is a nice job of looking at ways to include different ability levels, different exceptionalities into the classroom. Universal design is a thing even up through the college level. What can we do to make sure that everybody is learning? And so it has to do with, how do we present information? Are there multiple ways to present information? Is there multiple ways to practice information? Is there multiple ways that they can demonstrate they've mastered a concept? And so those are universal designs. And then the idea of everybody, there's age appropriate expectations, then there's individual expectations in the backdrop of being culturally sensitive to the learners that are in your classroom. Next is going to be autism spectrum disorder. And so this is a sensory room. It's really great. The ECE Center in Frisco, I have toured their room and it's amazing. And so the idea of meeting sensory needs are here. 8 common early signs of autism, so that you can be aware of them, and if parents are concerned, you can know them. And then the idea of ECI, that the earlier we start intervention, the sooner that we can identify somebody and put those helps in place, the better off they are. They have the more opportunities to learn. A lot of research shows that they have better outcomes later on. And so this is a good one. I'm also in the process of making the 2 PowerPoints for this as well. So those will be appearing over the next week. Then you have the environmental design activity. And so what I've done, this is the 4-year-old classroom in Gunner ISD. I walked through with a video camera, and then I've taken still shots of the different areas. If you want to go back and look closer, this is the calm place. So what you're going to do is this. Using this, you're going to identify 6 changes to the classroom that uses principles of developmentally appropriate practices, universal design, inclusion, to make it more accessible to students. So what we've learned, I want you to apply it. And so I was thinking 2 of each. However you can identify 6 changes, that's what I'm looking for. So in the changes, list the change and give an example of how the change makes the environment more developmentally appropriate and accessible to students. So what I would suggest is, it might be easier to do the changes like this where it's a chart, so you can see the 6 changes and how it's more DAP or inclusive or universal design. Then think about a child who has autism and is nonverbal. What are 3 environmental changes could you make to make it more inclusive? Think about access, participation, and progress. And those are 3 strategies listed in the textbook for that. How can you provide them more access to information, give them more chances to participate and to progress? So it hits all three of universal design, DAP, and inclusion, and ties in friends with autism spectrum disorder. So that's this week. And I look forward to seeing your designs. And if you have any questions, I will create a discussion board for autism spectrum disorder or DAP inclusion. And that way, if you have any questions, we can continue having that conversation. So have a great week.